You're listening to the NFL Draft Bible Podcast Network, part of Sports Illustrated, giving you daily NFL Draft, Dynasty, and Devy Fantasy Football podcasts.
It's football time, and this is the Blitz. I am your host, Matt Hicks, the FF educator, joined, as always, by John Lobb, the Gridiron Scholar. We're talking Week 9 college fantasy football, giving you all your news and notes, marvelous matchups, Cff Sleepers, best bets, and DFS slates here for an exciting week of college football. John, Skip is on the sidelines tonight. He is taking the week off, so it's just me and you. And I got to tell you, John, I am excited for this week of college football. You know, there's some weeks where you have to be running errands, traveling back and forth, but this is going to be a week where I'm able to consume a lot of it. So I'm excited, and I bet you're fired up for Week 9 as well.
I am. I'm lucky. There's no games I'm going to this weekend. Last weekend, it was a Friday night game for UConn, so I had all day Saturday in front of the TV. And Matt, I owe you congratulations. You basically ended my season in the Kings Classic. Matt and I were playing each other, and he beat me with the UTSA wide receiver running back combo of Zachary Franklin and Sincere McCormick. He had both of those, and they beat me down and basically ended, I have no hope at the playoffs. So congratulations, Matt.
I think I cut out there. My goals for playing in the CFF Kings Classic were to not finish in last place, and my 3 wins I think will get me there. And then to finally beat John in a CFF fantasy football matchup. I think I've been trying this for about 3 years now. So I'm very excited to get the W against John finally. Let's go ahead. Let's jump into our news and notes for this week here, starting with Liberty redshirt senior quarterback Malik Willis. It came out on Wednesday that he feels good after receiving some minor treatment there on his foot. So he should be good to go for this upcoming matchup. Kentucky senior wide receiver Josh Ali is expected to suit up against Mississippi State, and the reports coming out of the coaching staff is that he's 100%. USC freshman quarterback Jackson Dart with a knee injury is now considered day-to-day, so I would not expect to see him yet, but we continuously creep closer to when Jackson Dart may be the starting quarterback again for the Trojans. South Florida junior Xavier Weaver, the wide receiver, is going to be considered a game-time decision against East Carolina, so that's going to be one to watch throughout the day. If you're listening here on Thursday, it's a Thursday night matchup between USF and ECU. Remember, Xavier Weaver is a high target guy. He doesn't always find the end zone because he plays in the USF offense, but a high volume guy. USC, the original USC, South Carolina redshirt senior quarterback Zeb Nolan did undergo a successful meniscus surgery, but is reportedly good to go. I don't understand what's going on here in this South Carolina quarterback room. I don't know if they just don't have anybody left. They're just going to put the injured Zeb Nolan back on the field, say he's 100%.
They should just go rugby style.
Seriously, man. Beamer needs to call up Army here and figure out how they run that triple option, because they shouldn't be throwing the ball once. I mean, what is going on here?
It's crazy.
Utah senior wide receiver Theo Howard is uncertain for Saturday's game against UCLA. So the Utes will travel to take on the Bruins there. Tulane freshman quarterback Michael Pratt is still in concussion protocol as of today, Wednesday night here, after suffering a concussion last week against the Ponies. Oklahoma wide receiver Mike Woods has a chance to play against Texas Tech this Saturday. That's a matchup we're going to be talking a lot more about here on today's show. Couple more here. TCU redshirt senior wide receiver J.D. Spielman has announced his retirement from football. J.D. Spielman has been around the game a while, 3 years at Nebraska, the transfer to TCU. It sounded like this was a personal decision for Spielman between him and his family. It's a little sad, John. I'll say, as somebody who has just kind of been around the game for a while, it's always sad to see that, especially end kind of in an untraditional format. And then Buffalo redshirt junior Kevin Marks did return to practice this week. He's expected to be good to go to take on Bowling Green. Anybody against Bowling Green is an exciting matchup, so definitely be on the lookout there for Kevin Marks. John, from the news and notes, any omissions, any additions?
No, it's, Dylan McDuffie, the running back at Buffalo, has been so good recently because one thing, Kevin Marks was missing time. So it'll be interesting to see how many carries Marks gets in comparison to McDuffie when he returns here. Losing Michael Pratt, he's been a real nice quarterback this year. Gives you some running upside, a high floor. He's had some really, really big games. But I hope the young man gets healthy. That's more important with the concussion. And he's only a sophomore, so we got plenty of seasons to watch him play football. Get lucky, get healthy. And what is going on with South Carolina, Matt? This is an SEC school. For them not even to have a quarterback, I'm not saying they got to be a stud. I'm not saying you have to find the next Trevor Lawrence, but they literally can't even get a quarterback. Like, that is just bizarre. Like, they should have 3 young men in the quarterback room. They use a graduate assistant coach at one time. I mean, it's really bizarre what is happening to South Carolina, a program that should at least be able to trot out a starting level quarterback.
John, I'll tell you what, and then we'll move on to marvelous matchups. I just want to point out, South Carolina was the team that wanted to move on from Jake Bentley because they couldn't get over the hump. Jake Bentley is still playing down there at South Alabama, so I don't know who's getting the last laugh between that.
They would love to have Jake Bentley right now, Matt.
I know, and if you told a Gamecock fan that 3 years ago, they'd be yelling in your face. But here we go, our marvelous matchups of Week 9. Now, remember, our marvelous matchups are the highest over/under totals of the week. So me and John go through those games to take a look at the fantasy football value within those games. Of course, the highest spreads, highest implied totals. When there's more points, there's more fantasy points to be had. John, our highest of the week here, Charlotte is traveling to Western Kentucky to play the Hilltoppers, an over-under here of 73.
Matt, it used to be MAC Nation. We love the MAC conference. The MAC hasn't been great this year. Conference USA with the Hilltoppers has been more exciting. They put up these incredible numbers. I mean, 73. That is a massive amount. Bailey Zappi might be the value quarterback this year because he was a 5th or 6th round pick. Early in the process, back in April, you were getting him in round 9 or 10. He's just been spectacular for them. Jared Stearns, he might win the Biletnikoff. You look at the numbers, he's having over 1,000 yards receiving this year. He's been tremendous. You have Malachi Corley and Mitchell Tinsley. Put him into your lineups. Unfortunately, there's not a Hilltopper running back I'm even semi-interested in, Matt. Don't go. I know you would love to have a matchup with 73 over-under, but Western Kentucky doesn't throw the ball to the running back, so there's no one to get there. What's interesting, and you're going to talk about why we want to play someone in this Charlotte matchup, but this is about the Western Kentucky defense. They're not good. Surprise note there. They're not good. Now, I still don't know how Max Borgenschlager did not get 300 yards passing against Western Kentucky, which now their average, they were like off the charts bad before in the passing game. But because Borgenschlager was so they're giving up 276 yards a game on defense, passing, 33 points a game, and 448 total yards. Well, who am I looking at? The wide receivers on Charlotte. There's 2 really good ones. Conference USA has a lot of good receivers. If you've been paying attention all year, listening to our shows, they have so many good. I just told you, Matt beat me last week, was Zachary Franklin, another member of Conference USA. Victor Tucker and Grant DuBose. Grant DuBose is having a better season, mostly because he gets into the end zone. He seems to be the guy who scores for the 49ers. Victor Tucker's just very consistent and nice. Excuse me. If either of those wide receivers are available, put them in your lineup. And Matt's going to talk about another 49er later in the show.
Absolutely. All right, John, our next matchup here, Duke at Wake Forest. If I had told you at the beginning of the season that I'd be excited in week 9 to watch Duke at Wake Forest and the over-under would be 70, you would probably call me absolutely out of my mind, John. But that's exactly the situation we find ourselves in. The Blue Devils are traveling to play the Deacon Demons here, and there's definitely plenty of fantasy football value to go around. We have to start here with the Wake Forest offense. John, Wake Forest absolutely tossing up. Was it a 70 spot, I believe, last week?
70 to 56, 126 combined points, Matt.
And I think the stat was something like Wake Forest had 17 minutes of total possession time. So they were moving the ball. They were moving it through the air. Sam Hartman, look at Sam Hartman's stats here over the last few weeks. 458 yards, 5 touchdowns against Army. Against a good Syracuse team, 330 yards, 3 touchdowns. Against a good University of Virginia team, a solid University of Virginia team, 270 yards, 3 touchdowns. On the season, 19 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. This was the Sam Hartman that Devy folks have been talking about 3 years ago. And it's finally coming to fruition here. And so, I mean, we are all in here on the Wake Forest offense, our passing attack. Now, you go ahead, you look at Duke here. Duke is currently 127th in the country in passing defense here. All right. They allow 314 yards per game. The only teams worse than them in the country are Georgia Southern, Florida International, Tulane. Not exactly the company that you want to be around. We're honing in on Sam Hartman, and we're, of course, going down to Roberson. I don't even feel like I need to spend a ton of time talking about Roberson. That's the obvious play. But don't forget to hear about A.T. Perry. 600 yards, 20.7 yards per reception, 8 touchdowns. He's leading the way for the Deacon Demons in touchdowns. So we are all in. We're not thinking twice about this Wake Forest passing attack. Obviously, Christian Beal-Smith is there on the ground, but I really want to hone in on the passing attack. I think you could still play Beal-Smith here in the flex spot if you're in a tight pinch. Going over to the Duke side of the ball, I'm really honing in on Mateo Durant. And so, I mean, the passing attack, a little bit of interest here, but not really. I think the Blue Devils are going to need to rely on Durant to keep him in the game. 166 attempts, 870 yards. And here's the key, 9 touchdowns, averaging more than 1 touchdown per game. He finds the end zone. He finds fantasy football relevancy. John, Arkansas State at South Alabama, 66.5. South Alabama is laying 9.
Before I want to talk about that great game ahead, I've got to mention the ACC. I've been playing this game for a long time. It started out as Big 12 was the conference you wanted to get into. No question about it. The MAC and the American Athletic have been great. Obviously, there's other good teams like Ohio State, Alabama. But this year, Matt, I've become a huge ACC fan. They are unbelievable. Out of the top 16 teams in the nation, 5 of them are from the ACC. Virginia, Pittsburgh, Duke, North Carolina, and Wake Forest are all among the top 16 offenses in the nation. You know what's the craziest part, Matt? Clemson stinks. I mean, we're talking about the ACC. Everyone has built up an offense to compete with Dabo Swinney, and the one year they all get an offense, Dabo's offense goes right out the door. I mean, it's unbelievable how good the ACC is. I've been watching them a ton this year because look at these quarterbacks. Brennan Armstrong, Kenny Pickett, Sam Hartman, and Sam Howell. The conference is just amazing. I have to talk about it. They're explosive football. I just love it. Now, on to our Arkansas State, Alabama, South Alabama. Matt, you just mentioned it. Jake Bentley. I picked him up on 2 teams this week. because of buys and injuries. I'm definitely starting him on one, considering on the other. I have some decisions. I usually make them early Saturday morning. South Carolina wish they had a quarterback as good as Jake Bentley right now. They're not even close. If you need a sleeper at the quarterback, he's a home quarterback with an over-under 66.5 and a 9-point favorite. Jalen Tolbert, Matt, I've come to the conclusion he's going to be a second-round pick in the NFL draft. Jalen Tolbert's great. You know what? Jake Bentley's smart enough to do one thing, no matter what any Gamecock fan thinks about him. And you know what that is, Matt? Get the ball to Jalen Tolbert. He probably has it on his wrist. Get the ball to Jalen Tolbert. Like, when all else fails, throw it up. Tolbert's having a great year. Bentley's having a productive fantasy season. The other side of the ball, we love this. Arkansas State stinks. Their defense is historically awful. Matt, they are as bad as UMass and UConn in the last 4 years. Their defense is giving up 600 yards a game. Let me repeat that. Almost 600 yards a game. They are awful. But you know why we love that? They give up points, and it forces them to put the ball in the air. And then we kind of got lucky. James Blackman's out. Well, why is that lucky? They're playing one quarterback, Lane Hatcher. That's all we've ever wanted. Play one quarterback. Let him throw the ball. 3 receivers. Corey Rucker's on he's just, like 95% owned. You're not going to be able to grab Corey Rucker. You know he's a must start. But Jeff Foreman and Tavalance Hunt are 2 very productive receivers. They're a little up and down. You don't get the consistency every week. But when I'm staring at a 66.5 over-under, and they're a dog, which says they're going to have to throw, I love that matchup. Get any of those receivers. But again, no running backs I like in this game.
All right, Texas Tech at Oklahoma, a game we are definitely going to be talking about here a little bit more later on in this episode. But to start here, we're looking at an over-under of 67. Oklahoma's laying 19.5. Just want to let that number sink in a little bit. I'm not sure about that number, 19.5. I don't know what they've done. I don't know what they've done to earn that number. But let's start here on the Texas Tech side of the ball. I don't rule out Texas Tech's offense here. Now, we're in an interesting spot. We have a new head coach, right? The interim head coach, Matt Wells, 5-3, gets fired at Texas Tech. Question marks about that as well. But let's start here with the running game. So Roderick Thompson is back. He's back in action here, and he's consistently gotten last week he got 12 touches, but before that, we're looking at 15 to 20 touches per game here. Struggled against Kansas State, but did still find the end zone twice. If you go to Oklahoma has allowed 159 rushing yards per game on average this season. So there's certainly the ability to find some holes in this Oklahoma running attack. I mean, Devin Neal found plenty of holes there last week. And then we're going to go to the passing game here. Oklahoma, against the pass this season, 121st in the country. All right, so 9th worst in passing yards allowed per game, 294. So you have Eric never can get it. Uzanama.
Don't ask me.
I always get it wrong. I apologize, Eric. Now, he's been a little up and down this season, right? It hasn't been a hit every week. 5 for 76 against Kansas, 7 for 56 against Texas, 6 for 143 against Stephen F. Austin, and 7 for 179 against Houston. So we've seen the big games. This is the week to bet on the big games because Oklahoma is going to push Texas Tech to throw the ball more. And I just mentioned they're giving up a lot of passing yards per game. Now you flip over to the other side of the ball. It's pretty easy to get in here on the Oklahoma offense. Of course, Caleb Williams, we don't need to get into that. Kennedy Brooks has proven that he is a consistent play. The key is here trying to figure out what to do with the wide receiver room. The ball is being spread around really evenly. So the key thing that's jumping out to me when looking at the wide receiver room, it's Jaden Hazelwood. Hazelwood is leading the team with 6 touchdowns, but more importantly here, since Caleb Williams has taken the helm in the 2 full games of Caleb Williams at the helm, It's TCU, 6 for 56 and 3 touchdowns. Kansas, 3 for 38 and 1 touchdown. Remember, Oklahoma struggled to move the ball against Kansas. It was still Hazelwood that was the focus. So if you're trying to figure out what to do with that wide receiver room, it's Hazelwood that I would be locking. This is going to be a weird game, John. One way or the other. Texas Tech, Oklahoma, 3:30 game on ABC. It's going to be a weird game that they should not be playing at that time frame. But let's go ahead, round things out here.
You know it's interesting, Matt?
Yeah.
I did my schedule. I got the Michigan State at noon, and then I get to flip over to Texas Tech, Oklahoma, at least as long as the game is close. Hopefully the Red Raiders keep that game close.
I think they will. I think we'll talk more about it, but I think they will, John.
I don't disagree with you on this one. I don't disagree.
All right. Mississippi at Auburn here. Over under 66 and Auburn lane 3.
I was shocked when this was 66. My first thought, Matt, was, who the heck do I want to play at Auburn? So I'm like, I quickly have to go to Auburn. And the first thing I noticed is Auburn is averaging 35 points a game. Part of it is because of their early schedule, and they had some pancakes on it. So they put up some points. But they're also averaging 447 yards a game. Like, I didn't know the Tigers were doing that. So I was like, all right, now I gotta look deeper. And here's my conundrum, Matt. It's the Bo Nix. It's all Bo Nix. He's been so disappointing. He's so wildly inconsistent. It's maddening watching him, But I look at the numbers, 8 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, nothing overly impressive, only 2 rushing touchdowns. So I say to myself, I guess if you're really desperate, you need a quarterback. You could play Bo Nix. He is home here in a high over-under, but I definitely don't want to do it, right? I'm not in love with Bo Nix. Then, I think Tank Bigsby, other than Eric Gray, that's a whole that we can't. He's not even worth the discussion anymore. I mean, I whiffed on that one. It gave him get on the field. That's a whole different story. But Tank Bigsby has been not very impressive. The numbers are all okay. Then you have the conundrum. Jarquez Hunter, the freshman, has similar numbers. But do I want to play either one? I think they're kind of flex options right now. And Matt, the receiving core is even worse. The best receiver is the transfer originally from Cal through Georgia, Demetrius Robertson. He leads the team with 23 receptions, 3 touchdowns. So I'm blown away because I would like to recommend some Auburn Tigers here. The only 2 I can really think about is Jarquez Hunter and Bo Nix if you're desperate. But I'm not in love with either of those options. The other side now, and this is going to be a fascinating game. Since Mississippi lost Mingo and Braylon Sanders, Matt Corral has not been throwing the ball. He's not been productive. He's been okay. He went from being a superstar like 35 points a week to, if he didn't have 190 yards rushing on 30 carries, which is ridiculous, that should never have happened, his numbers would be even far worse. You have to start him. I mean, you drafted him in the first round. He's still getting you over 20 points, so you got to start him. Dontario Drummond, I still believe you've got to start him too. I don't think he's going to put up the monster numbers that he did early, but the over-under says someone's going to score a lot of points. I think the value's in the running game now. Snoop Connor, Henry Parrish, Jerron Ely are all playing well. I mean, Lane Kiffin I give him credit because I was all over him when he let Corral carry 30 times. That's just ludicrous. Well, he even learned that was just absurd. He went to the running game last week and he gave the football to his running backs, not his star quarterback. It worked. So I could see if you're desperate in a flex position, grab one of these running backs. This is a fascinating game because Vegas is telling us there's lots of touchdowns, but it's kind of difficult to pinpoint where they're coming from.
All right, John, let's jump into our CFF Sleepers segment here. The point of this segment is to give an idea of some players, not with the highest roster percentages here, that have good matchups, could outproduce expectations this week. John, certainly some players I'm excited about. I already see up here on the graphic, so I can't wait for you to break them down.
This just came about because one of the things I do Tuesday night is I begin to look at the defensive numbers, right? I'm trying to look for bad defenses. That's how I start my research. And Georgia Southern is one of the worst defenses against the pass in the nation. So I'm like, oh, they're playing Georgia State. Now, I like Georgia State early in the year, but that was with the quarterback, Cornelius Brown. Hey, Matt, he's lost a job. This young man, Darren Granger, has stepped in, and this is shocking. In the last 2 games, he has produced 31.5 and 50 fantasy points. And then in the 3 games before that, 1 bad game, 9 points, but the other 2, 23 and 24. Brown was holding back the offense. Since Danny Granger took the offense over, they've been productive. Georgia State is scoring points, and Granger is clearly worth starting there. Now, one player this week, it's all about the matchup. If you have not figured it out yet, Arizona stinks. They have the longest losing streak in the nation, which is mind-blowing. I cannot believe Arizona's lost 19 straight. And I'm a UConn fan, so I've seen losing streaks, right? We got Massachusetts just north of us. So the fact that Arizona is on a 19-game losing streak, they're playing USC, the Trojans, on the road this week. Matt and I discussed this on our Debbie show last week. Has anyone fallen bigger than Keyshawn Slovis? The only way you protect Keyshawn Slovis right now is you give the ball to your big boy, Keontae Ingram. Love this matchup. It just says Ingram should get 20 carries minimum in this game. Last week against Notre Dame, he was very good. 24 carries, 138 yards, and a touchdown. Arizona is not going to put up the defense that Notre Dame has. In the last 4 games, Ingram, 21, 12, 14, and 28 fantasy points. Ingram is roster. What do we have there? 23% of leagues. If you need a running back, you can put him in your running back or your slot. He is going to be very good this week. I have no question about it. Anyone who knows me, I love the American Athletic Conference. I thought UCF was done. They are. They're not playing good. They did win a game, which I'm still mad because that was my only loss last week. But I didn't know the Memphis quarterback was out. But that's all right. You got to suffer it in college fantasy football and when you bet. But Ryan O'Keefe, he has become the alpha male in that Knights passing game. I'll be the first one. Once Dylan Gabriel was out, Matt, my thought was they're done. So I kind of ignored the Knights offense and in the beginning they weren't playing well. But Ryan O'Keefe is playing well. He's risen to the occasion. In the last 3 games, 26, 18, 17 fantasy points. For the year, 41 receptions, 416 yards. The only missing factor is he's only scored twice. But this week they play Temple. Temple's not very good. He's definitely someone that you want to play. He's only on 13% of of leagues right now. Ryan O'Keefe, I picked him up twice off of waivers. He's someone you can get right now and put him into your lineups. And then this young man, Darren Mangum, coming from Colorado. You probably haven't been paying much attention to him because he's at South Florida. His last 5 games, Matt, 27, 14, 14, 23, 21 points. South Florida's actually been mildly competitive lately. I believe they're 3-4. They're playing better football. They're not going to go to a bowl game. Unless they win out, but I don't expect them to. But they're playing better football. And you know why? They give the ball to Darren Mangum. They're using him. He's productive. And you know why? He plays East Carolina. Play players against the Pirates. Be careful. This game, I believe, is Thursday night. The game, when you're listening or watching this, if you want a running back, Darren Mangum, against East Carolina, he's going to have a good game. Put him into your lineups, everyone.
All right, here. And I'll start off here with the quarterback position for my sleepers, rostered in 37% of leagues. Somebody who 2 weeks ago was a very great weekly ad for me. And I will put a caveat in here. I believe currently Chris Reynolds out of Charlotte has a questionable designation. So you'll want to keep a close eye on this one. But assuming he's playing, I think this is a great week for Reynolds to be a sneaky play. Now, he struggled last week against Florida Atlantic, but before that, he had 3 games, or on the season, he's got 3 games of 3+ touchdowns and no interception this season. He has 2 games of plus 300 passing yards, and he has at least 9 rushing attempts in the last 4 weeks. I always love that rushing potential to be in there. Charlotte, we mentioned earlier, it's a high over-under, a high implied point total here for the 49ers. And here's the best part. Western Kentucky, 119th in the country in passing yards per game. They are 121st over the last 3 games. And get this, they are worse at home. The Hilltoppers have allowed on average, and they will be home, they have allowed on average 372 yards against them at home and only 248 away. I don't know why they play worse at home, but they do. This is a good spot for Chris Reynolds in the 49ers. Now, another situation to watch here. Last week, John gave you the Hawaii running back, Dedrick Hunter. Dedrick Hunter ended up getting injured early in the game, and his replacement was Dedrick Parson. So this is going to be a little bit of a 2-part, John. I'm going to talk about Dedrick Parson in particular, but watch for health status of Dedrick Hunter throughout the week. Parson comes in, he goes 25 for 161 and 3 touchdowns against New Mexico State. Hawaii has Utah State this week. They've allowed 5.7 yards per carry, 119th in the country. So Dedrick Parson is absolutely somebody who could come in and smash, rostered in just 4% of leagues, again, because he hasn't really been a factor until last week. So if Dedrick Hunter is out again, Dedrick Parson is absolutely in play. Miami, the wide receiver here, it's going to be Keyshawn Smith, rostered in just 1% of leagues. All right, but I like what I saw from Keyshawn Smith over the last 2 weeks. Now, the last 2 weeks are significant because you're looking to pair him up with new quarterback Tyler Van Dyke. Tyler Van Dyke last week lit up North Carolina State, 25 for 33, 325, 4 touchdowns. And Keyshawn Smith over the last 2 weeks, 11 receptions, 104 yards. He finds the end zone, he hits. All right, and if the receptions keep coming, he's going to find the end zone. Miami has a total of 61 playing Pitt, 26 implied points here for the Hurricanes. But I got to tell you, I'm not trying to be a Pitt doubter, but I don't think they're unbeatable. I think Miami, with a little bit of momentum behind the new quarterback, Van Dyke, back healthy, in charge. The Miami locker room is very hype around Van Dyke. I think that they could come out and try to put up a statement win here against the ACC, which John talked about earlier. They're just going to continue to implode on themselves as a conference. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen with Miami this week. And then Virginia Tech, Tavion Robinson, 10%, are rostered in just 10% of leagues here. Virginia Tech pulls Georgia Tech, who has allowed the second most passing yards per game over the last 3 weeks, 362 yards per game allowed over the last 3 weeks here. So Georgia Tech is clearly struggling on the defensive side of the ball. Tavion Robinson has at least 5 receptions in 3 of the last 4 weeks. And again, another example of a guy, if he finds the end zone, he's going to hit for you. All right, John, we're going to transition here over to our bet segment, our best bets of the week segment. Before we actually jump into them, we have just a really good record going on here. John is 18-9 on the season. I am 15-9. Skip is 14-9-1. But as a team, 47, 27, and 1, 63% here, picking point spread over, under, and money line every week. So I'll turn it over to you, John, to kick us off here with your picks. John, you're the one having audio issues this time. We're on a roll today.
It's my fault. I muted because I didn't want to interrupt. I'm trying to get ready with my research here. I'm double dipping. Matt, this is not Clemson. I don't understand why the general public are they not watching Clemson? This team's bad, Matt. They're not good. You know how many times they have scored more than 20 points all year, Matt? You want to take a random guess?
Is it 0?
Not that bad. Twice.
All right, there we go.
They scored 49 against South Carolina State. So let's just throw that out. That shouldn't even count. FCS school. The other time, in double overtime,
my 0 holds.
The Tigers got the 21 against NC State. Every other game, they have scored less than 19 points or less. Matt, they can't score. Their offense is terrible. I took Pitt last week. I loved Pitt, and they only scored 17. They're not good. You're giving me 10 points? Oh, my God. If Florida State puts up 1 touchdown, that's 17 points. I don't see how Clemson covers the 17. I mean, I think Florida State's going to score more than 1 touchdown. Give me the Seminoles plus 10, and I'll take it. Maybe it's because it's in Death Valley, but I'll still take it. Florida State's playing better football. Matt, this is how impressive in the last 3 games. And anyone who listens to my podcast, I'm not a Florida State guy in the last couple of years. I think their team's been bad. Their offensive line's been atrocious. But I will give credit where credit is due. In the last 3 weeks, Florida State is 3-0, Matt. They beat Syracuse 33-30. They beat North Carolina 35-25. They beat it's UMass, but they beat UMass 59-3. Do you see a nice trend here? The Seminoles found an offense. Jordan Travis, Jashawn Corbin, Parchment, the Seminoles can score. But 47. I'm trying to think, Matt, that's almost 7 touchdowns. That means basically they think Vegas is telling us right now, they think Clemson's going to score 28 points. Nope. They're not scoring 28. I don't get it. I'm taking the under. I think Florida State wins this very boring 24 to 16, 17, something like that. So give me the under. And here's an interesting game. People don't look at this. Hawaii is also playing better football. You just mentioned it. If you haven't been watching the Rainbows, you think of them, and so do I, as a pass-first, wide-open offense. But you know what, Matt? They lost their starting quarterback. You know what they've done? In the last couple of weeks, they've pounded the football. That's why I like Day Hunter. Now, I had to take him out of the lineups last week. Luckily, I saw that early. It's either Friday night or Saturday morning. It came across the Day Hunter wasn't playing. So I took him out of the lineup. But Hawaii's playing good football. And you know who can't stop the run? The Aggies. Yep. There is no reason why the Rainbow Warriors here should not run the ball 35 times down the Aggies' throat. It's on the road, and I'll give Hawaii some credit here. They've gotten tough. Now, we all watched them get blown out by UCLA early, but they just got physically dominated. But since then, and especially in the last 3 weeks, the Rainbows are playing good football. I think they're going to go in and upset the Aggies. Give me a Y plus 180 on the money line.
All right, I like that. John, another team that I like, and it sounds weird to say because they're 0-7, but I'm into this UNLV Rebels team here, and I like Nevada. This is not a slight against Nevada, but 20.5? You're giving me 20.5 for the UNLV Rebels? Let's look at what they've done. I got to watch them last week. Oh, man, they must have been the Thursday game last week, I believe, against San Jose State, because I caught them, and I was traveling last week on Friday, so it must have been the Thursday game. It was 27-20. They played a close game against a good San Jose State team. Look at the week before. Their loss 28-24. The week before, 24-17. A good undefeated, my UTSA Roadrunners. All right, the aforementioned. The week before, Fresno State, the 22nd ranked team in the country, 38-30. John, they're 0-7, but this isn't a bad team.
There's no UConn.
Yeah, it's no UConn. It's no UConn. They just haven't caught their break yet.
Yeah.
And we have a good Nevada team here. I'm not knocking Nevada. This is my argument simply for UNLV to keep this game close. I got to tell you, too, true freshman Cameron Friel, the quarterback here for UNLV, he impressed me in the game. Now, he hasn't had a beautiful box score throughout the season, but I watched him last week, and he did have a good game. 20 of 28, 240 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. He had 14 rushing attempts. The stats don't look good. It's just 5 yards because of the sacks, but he's mobile. So I think there's a little bit of spark potential here in this UNLV team, and I think that they're going to be able to keep it within 20.5. Kentucky and Mississippi State, John, I actually put it down on the show sheet wrong. I'm taking the over 47.5. So the graphic looks wrong. That is my fault. I put it on the show sheet incorrectly. Wildcats against the Bulldogs here, over 47.5. I honestly, I know last year, I think this line is being dictated. Last year, they combined for 26 points, but this is a much better Kentucky offense than last year. I think this is a much better Mississippi State offense than last year. I expect this game to go well into the 50s, so I'm taking the over on that one. John, I'm taking a shot on the money line. All right, I am taking my shot here on the money line. Plus 630. Give me Texas Tech. Now, I want to preface this as saying this is not a high confidence selection. All right. So I'm not telling you to put the bank on this one. But Texas Tech at plus 630, there is just enough there to keep me interested. You cannot tell me this Oklahoma team is going to run the table. You cannot tell me that with a high level of confidence that is going to happen. So pick your team that's going to trip up Oklahoma, right? And I think Texas Tech has just as good of a shot as anybody else. A couple factors playing into this here. Oklahoma had 121st pass defense in the country. We talked about that earlier. 8th worst pass defense over the last 3 weeks. Texas Tech wants to throw the ball. And I know once Tyler Shuck has been out that they haven't thrown the ball as well. But listen, there is a high level of variability with a coach turnover. That team may show up to play. It may go the other way. But look at what they did. Look at what Kansas was able to do against Oklahoma last week.
Yeah.
If Kansas can do that, Texas Tech can move this game. All right, at plus 630, there's enough payoff there to at least keep me interested in it. So I'm going to get a little gutsy there, John. I'm going to go Texas Tech plus 630.
Hey, all you have to do is put 1 unit on it and look at what you get back. I mean, and I think Oklahoma will probably lose a game down the stretch here.
There's no way. There's no way they finish out completely even. All right, running through it here are my DFS lineup Saturday slate. Now, John, I would say this week is not quite as ugly as last week, but it is definitely not a pretty slate by any means. So I don't blame you. By the way, this is the time of the year. This is just a quick aside before we actually get into it here. As a quick aside, I don't blame anybody who wants to just take weeks off at this time of the year. I think that is a totally acceptable move for folks to make at this time of the year. When it comes to the DFS, look at the slate and decide if it's actually what you want it to do. All right, here we go. I think you got to pay up for Caleb Williams, $10,000. That is totally I think you just have to pay up for him. I don't think you can work around this here on the DK Superflex style slate. Vincent Davis, the running back from Pitt, has been seeing more action than you would expect. 3,900, that's my cheap play. I've seen over 10 touches the last 2 weeks. We talked about the Pitt-Miami game. I think once Miami really starts to kick up the offense, Pitt is going to try their best to slow down the game and control it, and Vincent Davis could be a big part of that. Again, paying up here, Bijan Robinson, this is a plug and play at this point in time. I got to tell you, when I put Bijan in my lineups and I look for cheap plays, they tend to work out better than when I try to save money, not playing Bijan Robinson. So we're just playing Bijan Robinson, folks. Drew Estrada, Baylor against Texas. I think Baylor has a good shot to push Texas into a high-scoring game, win this matchup. Estrada is the volume play, just $4,000 for Baylor, and he's a high-volume guy. Ja'Cory Roberson here, 7,600, Wake Forest. We talked about it. You're playing Ja'Cory Roberson here. Keyshawn Smith, remember I talked about Keyshawn Smith from Miami, 3,700, probably my favorite cheap play this week. Staying in Miami here, we're looking at Tyler Van Dyke here. And now this is the one I struggle a little bit, John. I don't like paying down at the quarterback position, but I got to tell you, I just don't know that I like anything else. Like you're just kind of in a tough spot here. And Tyler Van Dyke, I mentioned, I think he has the ability to go ahead and put up good numbers. And then my last cheap play here, 4,300, Shea Wyatt for Tulane. We mentioned the possibility of Pratt being injured and being out. We could see a move towards the running game here. Now, they are playing Cincinnati. That is a good rush defense. But if we're chasing volume, that's what we want to do here on cheap plays. And Shea Wyatt absolutely fits that bill. John, run us through your fantastic four here for the DK Saturday slate.
And Matt, I'm on the same page with you. It's a little bit better than last week's slate. And we have 14 games in 12, so there are more options. But there's this wide range of quarterbacks that are really hard to decide. I'm going to take one here. It's because of the projected output. The Ducks are heavy favorites against Colorado. And Colorado stinks. They're not as bad as Arizona, but they're pretty bad. They can't score here. And the Ducks are trying to impress. They believe they can win the Pac-12 and get to the playoffs. So the Ducks might put a 45 spot up on Buffalo here, on the Buffaloes, and not care about it at all at the home. Get the home crowd excited, get the attention of the voters. Let's get. So I think the Ducks are going to maul them. So who do I like? Anthony Brown. It's because of the floor in a cash game. 24, 23, 22, 24. All he needs is one more rushing touchdown in any of these games, Matt, and he gets over 30 points. I like Anthony Brown here because of the rushing floor. I've been doing this in DFS. I talked about it early in the year. I always had Garrett Wilson over Olave because Garrett Wilson was significantly less, and it worked out for me in cash games. Right now, Matt, Blake Corum is 8,100, and he's having a fantastic fantasy season. But Hassan Haskins is 6,900, which is $1,200 less, which on a tight slate is a massive amount. In the last two games, if you watch Michigan, and I watch Michigan all the time, Hassan Haskins has scored 27 and 26 points back-to-back weeks. He gets the same volume as Corum. Now, the difference is Blake Corum is the home run hitter and Blake Corum is the pass catcher. So he might have a little bit more upside. But if you watch Michigan in the red zone, they tend to use Haskins, especially in the second half when they've started to beat up the defense because Haskins is the more physical of the two. I'll take Haskins here for such a significant savings and hope he gets in the end zone again. We talked about this game with Duke, Wake Forest. You got to play Mateo Durant. You hinted at it, Matt. He's their pass catcher. He's their goal line back. He's their back. He's going to touch the ball in this game most likely 25 times. Last week, against UV, Virginia, he had 5 receptions. He only got 5 yards. That sounds like a stat you can't make up. But the point is, even in losses, Mateo Durant is on the field. Duke can score. I don't think they're going to get shut out again. And look at what Army did. Now, it was a triple option, so that's a problem. I understand that. But Duke should be breaking down the film and looking at some of the blocking combinations by the offensive line, and they should be able to pop some holes here against Wake Forest. Mateo Durant is only 7,700. Love him in this spot. And then, this is really, Jordan Addison had a concussion. I believe it's a concussion. He left the game last week. He's questionable to play. I don't think Jordan Addison's going to play this week for the Panthers. So I'm going to take the expected uptick in targets for Tyseer Mack. Against Georgia Tech 3 weeks ago, Matt, he scored 26 fantasy points. Last week against Clemson, he had 15 fantasy points. The upside is there, especially if Addison doesn't play. I love Tyseer Mack at 4,700. Excuse me, my allergies tonight. I apologize, everyone. And Tyseer Mack for 4,700 gives me some salary savings. And that's my fantastic 4 for the draft, the 12 o'clock noon slate.
All right, fantastic. Well, there you have it. That is our DraftKings DFS, our CFF Sleepers, our marvelous matchups, and all the news and notes you need for your Week 9 college fantasy football matchup. Wishing everybody the best of luck in their matchups and enjoy another fantastic week of college fantasy football. We appreciate it.